Hey, I'm Jasper. I'm 25, living in a cozy little apartment on the outskirts of Denver, Colorado. I work as a freelance developer, mostly for startups that can't afford a full-time team. It's not my dream job, but it covers the bills. The rent lets me stock the fridge and code in sweatpants from home most days. Life's pretty straightforward. Code, coffee, and maybe a run in the evening if I'm feeling up for it. I don't have a huge circle of friends, just a few close ones, like Reed. He's my best buddy from high school, the kind of guy who can make you laugh even on your worst day. Reed's mom, Nora, she's a whole different story. She's 43 and works as an administrative manager at a logistics firm downtown. I've known her since I was a kid, but always from a distance. She's not your typical mom image, no frumpy sweaters or neighborhood bake sales. Nora has this quiet strength, sharp and self-assured, like she's been through hell and come out tougher. She was an army nurse once, which explains her posture like nothing could catch her off guard. I've always kept my distance, not because she scares me, but because she's Reed's mom. That's a line you don't cross, right? Reed talked me into joining a company camping trip his mom organized. A 2-day hike in the Rockies, not too far from Denver. It's light stuff, he said, tossing me a spare backpack. Mom's going too. You in? I wasn't thrilled. Deadlines were piling up. But I hadn't left the city in months, and fresh air beat another Netflix night. So I packed a bag, threw in some granola bars, and met them at the trailhead that Saturday morning. The group was small, about 10 people, mostly Nora's office colleagues, 40-somethings with shiny new gear. Reed and I were the youngest, feeling a bit out of place. Nora led the way, setting a steady, no-nonsense pace. She wore a fitted jacket, cargo pants, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. I caught myself watching her stride smooth and efficient. No stiffness, no show. She'd pause to point out a trail marker or check everyone's water like she was still in nurse mode, making sure no one dropped. We rode up in 2 vans, winding through pine-covered hills to the base camp, a clearing with a fire pit and views of snow-capped peaks. The air was crisp, thick with pine and earth. The plan was simple. Set up tents, hike a few miles to a viewpoint, then back for dinner. The trails weren't extreme, just winding paths through the woods. Nothing scary, or so we thought. Reed and I joked around, tossing a frisbee while the group unpacked. Nora caught my eye once, offering a half smile as she adjusted her pack. "You boys keeping up?" she called, her voice light but with that edge of command. I smiled back, shrugging, trying to match her rhythm. By mid-afternoon, we were on the trail, spreading out in small groups to cover more ground. The sky was clear, sunlight filtering through the trees, casting long shadows. Reed got stuck with a chatty coworker droning on about stock portfolios. So I ended up hiking with Nora and this guy Toby, an accountant, more glued to his phone than the scenery. Nora took point, calling out a deer track or a cluster of wildflowers, her voice calm with a hint of quiet excitement. I didn't say much, just listened, nodding when she glanced back. There was something about her, this total ease in the wild, like the forest was her turf. We'd gone about 2 miles when the clouds rolled in, heavy and gray. The air thickened, heavy with that pre-storm humidity. Nora checked her watch, frowning. "We should head back soon," she said. "Rain's coming." Toby grumbled about his new boots getting muddy, but I didn't mind. A little challenge sounded like a solid story later. I had no clue this trip was about to turn into a full-blown ordeal. The rain hit faster than expected. First, a drizzle, just enough to dampen my hoodie. Then a downpour, sheets of water pounding the forest floor. The trail turned to sludge under our feet, and the trees offered slim shelter. Nora, Toby, and I were still together, but the rest of the group had scattered, their voices lost in the hiss of the rain. My phone had no signal. Toby muttered about his soaked jacket, but Nora stayed focused, scanning the path ahead. "We need higher ground," she said, her voice steady over the roar. "This low trail's gonna flood." We pushed on, mud sucking at our boots. Nora led, her ponytail plastered to her neck, jacket clinging to her frame. I couldn't help noticing her calm, her deliberate moves, like she'd faced worse than a storm. Toby lagged, fiddling with his useless phone. I stuck close to Nora, partly because she knew what she was doing, partly because I didn't want to get separated. The air smelled of wet pine and dirt, sharp and thick. Thunder rumbled in the distance, low and ominous. We reached a rocky outcrop, a jumble of boulders offering some cover. Nora stopped to check her map, but the paper was half soaked, ink running. "Camp's not far," she said, squinting through the rain. "Maybe a mile if we cut across." She stepped forward, skirting a pile of loose rocks, when it happened. A sharp cry tore from her throat, raw and sudden. I spun around just as she stumbled, clutching her leg. Her face twisted in pain. "Nora!" I yelled, rushing to her side. She was already sinking, one hand gripping a tree root. "Snake?" she gasped, pointing to a flash of black and yellow slithering into the underbrush. My stomach dropped. "Rattler? Maybe?" I wasn't sure, but the shake in her hand told the story. Blood seeped through her cargo pants. High on her thigh, a dark stain spreading fast. Toby froze, eyes wide, useless. "Oh God, what do we do?" he stammered, backing away like he might bolt. I ignored him, dropping to my knees beside Nora. Her breathing was quick and shallow, skin pale under the rain. "Jasper," she said, voice tight but controlled. "Listen, it's venomous. We move fast." Her eyes locked on mine, steady despite the hurt. I could see her fighting to stay composed. Jaw clenched, sweat mixing with rain on her forehead. "You know how to handle a snakebite?" she asked. I shook my head, heart pounding. "A little from a first aid class. Nothing like this." My hands hovered, unsure. She grabbed my wrist, grip firm. "Suck out the venom." Now, before it spreads, I stared at her, the words hitting like a gut punch. "Suck it out." My mouth went dry, but her hold tightened. "Jasper, I trust you. You can do this. Don't think, just do it." Her voice cut through my panic, urgent. I nodded, swallowing hard. Okay, tell me what to do." She leaned back against the tree, wincing. "Rip the fabric around the bite. Get to the wound, suck hard, spit. Don't swallow the venom's harmless in the stomach, but don't risk it." I fumbled with her pants, fingers clumsy from adrenaline. The fabric tore with a wet rip, exposing the wound. 2 angry punctures, red and swelling, high on her thigh, just below the hem of her shorts. Blood trickled down her skin, mixing with mud. I looked at her, hesitating for a split second. Her eyes met mine, no judgment, just waiting. "Go," she whispered. I took a deep breath, leaning in to press my lips to the gash. The taste was bitter, metallic, warm. I sucked hard, drawing venom and blood into my mouth, spitting it to the ground. "Again? Again!" My hands steadied her leg, muscles twitching under my fingers. "Good," she murmured, voice hoarse. "Keep going. Stay steady." Her hand rested on my shoulder, light but grounding. I felt her tremble, but it didn't show in her tone. My heart hammered, rain soaking my back, but I kept at it suck, spit praying I was doing it right. "You're doing great, Jasper," she said softer, breath ragged. "Don't stop." I glanced up once, her eyelids heavy, pain etched deep. "Nora, stay with me," I said, voice rougher than I meant. "You hear me?" She nodded faintly, a ghost of a smile. "I hear you. I'm not going anywhere." Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the fear. Toby paced nearby, mumbling about calling for help, but he was no use. It was just us, the rain, that damn bite. I went on until the wound looked less swollen, bleeding slower. My mouth tasted like copper. My hands slipped, slick with her blood and rain. "Enough, you think?" I asked, voice shaking. She drew a shaky breath, nodding. "You did it. You bought me time." But she couldn't walk. Her leg buckled, face ashen, storm unrelenting. I scanned around, no camp in sight, no signal, no one coming. The venom was slowed, but she needed real help, fast. I wiped water from my hair. "We gotta move, find shelter." She nodded, clutching my arm. "There's a ridge ahead, maybe a cave or something." Her voice faded, but her eyes stayed sharp, trusting me. I had no idea how we'd pull it off, but I wasn't letting her down. The rain didn't quit. It hammered the forest, turning the ground into a slick mess of mud and leaves. The air hung heavy, cold, biting through my drenched hoodie. Nora leaned on me, her weight heavier now, steps faltering. The venom was working, even after what I'd pulled out. Her face was pale, lips pressed thin, but her eyes held that stubborn fire I'd noticed at the trailhead. I half-carried her, arm around her waist, hers over my shoulder. We needed cover a spot to ride out the storm until help showed. If it did, that way, she whispered, nodding toward a rocky ridge, barely visible in the downpour. Her voice was faint but sure, like she was still in charge. I squinted, spotting a shallow overhang in the rocks. Not a full cave, but enough to get dry. Got it, I said, tightening my hold. The ground was treacherous roots and stones hidden in the muck. Every step was a gamble, but I wouldn't let her fall. Toby had vanished, probably off to find the others or just save himself. Didn't matter. It was us now. We made the overhang a narrow, rocky ledge, just deep enough to sit. I eased Nora down, back to the stone, injured leg stretched out. The wound looked better, less puffy, but still red and raw. She shivered. Torn pants, soaked, jacket no match for the chill. I pulled the survival blanket from my pack, a thin plastic sheet, and draped it over us, tying one end to a branch to block the wind. It wasn't much, but better than nothing. The air smelled of damp stone and pine, raw and biting. Thunder rolled again, closer, shaking the ground. "You okay?" I asked, crouching beside her. My voice echoed louder than I expected in the rock's quiet. She nodded, but her teeth chattered. Her hands hugged her arms. "Cold?" I pressed. "And tired," she admitted softly. Her eyes met mine softer than I'd ever seen. Not the confident ex-army nurse leading the hike like a drill. Just a woman in pain, fighting to stay awake. I didn't know Venom well, but I knew to keep her alert. "Talk to me," I said, sitting close. "No sleeping, all right?" She managed a weak smile, like she knew the drill. "You're bossy when you're scared," she teased, voice light despite it all. I laughed, even in the mess. "Yeah, well, I'm not the one who got bit by a snake." She chuckled, then winced, hand brushing her thigh. "Point to you." The blanket flapped in a gust, letting in icy air. I shifted closer, shoulders touching, to block the draft. "We need to stay warm," I said, hesitant. "That cool?" She looked at me, eyes searching mine for a beat. "Jasper, I'm not freezing here out of pride." She leaned into me, head on my chest. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her nearer her body, trembling against mine. It wasn't romantic, not then. It was survival, plain and raw. Her warmth mixed with mine, her breathing evening out as we sat there, rain drumming outside. My heart still raced from the bite, the panic, but holding her grounded me. "Tell me something," she said after a while, voice barely cutting the downpour. "Anything. Keep me awake." I swallowed, mind foggy. Sure. As a kid, I wanted to be a pilot. Flying planes, seeing the world." She tilted her head slightly, looking up. "What happened?" "Life, I guess. Switched to coding instead. Safer. Less sky." She laughed softly, a small win. "You'd have made a good pilot," she said. "You don't crack under pressure." I glanced down, surprised. "You sure?" I'm freaking out here." Her eyes held mine, steady through the pain. "You're here. That's enough." Her words hit harder than they should, sinking deep. I didn't know what to say, so I just tightened my arm. "Your turn," I said. "Tell me something." She went quiet for a moment, breath warm on my neck. "After my divorce," she started low, "I thought I'd never trust anyone again. Not like that. I spent years building walls, keeping people at arm's length, even Reed sometimes." She paused, fingers tightening on her sleeve. "But tonight? I'm not scared. Not with you here." My throat tightened. I didn't know what to make of it, her words, her trust. She wasn't just Reed's mom anymore. She was Nora raw, and real fighting, to survive under that rock with me. "Guess we're stuck together then," I said, trying to keep it light. She smiled, faint but real. Good company for being stuck. The rain kept falling. Night deepened, turning colder. My phone was dead, no signal anyway. I checked her pulse. Steady, but slow. "Stay with me, Nora," I said firmly. "We'll get through this." She nodded, her hand finding mine, squeezing weakly. I know. Hours dragged on, the storm merciless. I kept talking dumb coding projects, old camping trips. Anything to keep her eyes open. She listened, answered sometimes, nodded others, her head heavy on my chest. The cold seeped into my bones, but I didn't budge, didn't let go. Her breathing stayed even, hand in mine. We were cut off, alone in the world, but right then, it felt like we were all that mattered. Dawn was out there somewhere, and with it, hope. I just had to keep her warm, hold her here until it broke. Dawn crept in slow, rain easing to a fine mist as gray light filtered through the trees. My arms ached from cradling Nora all night, her body pressed to mine under that flimsy blanket. The cold had settled deep, fingers stiff, hoodie still damp. Nora's breathing was steady now, shallower than I'd like, but she was there, her hand loosely tangled in mine. The forest hushed, storm's roar swapped for dripping leaves and a distant bird call. I'd tied my red bandana to a branch above the overhang before dark, hoping it'd catch an eye. It was all I could do, wait and pray. Nora stirred, eyes fluttering. Jasper. Her voice rasped, weak but there. Relief washed over me like a wave. "Yeah, I'm here," I said, shifting to meet her gaze. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt, but her eyes clear-focused. "You still with me?" I added, half question. She mustered a faint smile. "Told you I wasn't going anywhere." Her fingers squeezed mine, a tiny thing worth 1,000. I checked her leg. Red, but stable, no worse. The venom hadn't spread much, thanks to the suction, but she needed a hospital. I scanned the misty horizon. No sign of anyone yet. "They'll find us," I said, more to convince myself. She nodded, leaning back on the rock. "You did good, Jasper." Most would have lost it. Her voice softened, almost proud. I shrugged, cheeks warming despite the chill. "No choice, couldn't leave you." Her eyes held mine a moment. Something shifted between us unspoken. Not Reed's mom, not the tough ex-nurse, just Nora. Vulnerable yet strong, trusting me in a way I never expected. A distant shout broke the quiet, faint but real. I stood, heart racing, and climbed a boulder, peering through the trees. Flashlights flickered in the fog, voices growing louder. "Over here!" I yelled, waving my arms, bandana flapping like a flag. Minutes later, the rescue team, park rangers, and a few of Nora's co-workers reached us. Reed was with them, face drained, eyes wide with worry. "Jasper! Mom!" he shouted, rushing over. I stepped back as a paramedic knelt by Nora, checking her pulse, the wound. "Rattler bite," I said. Sucked out what I could. The paramedic nodded, prepping an IV. "You probably saved her life." Smart move. They worked fast, strapping her to a stretcher, her eyes meeting mine one last time before they carried her down the trail. "Thanks," she mouthed, too quiet for the others. I nodded, throat tight, and trailed the group Reed at my side. He clapped my shoulder hard. "Man, I owe you big. Don't know what we'd have done." He trailed off, shaking his head. I didn't know what to say. The night's weight, her blood on my hands, her warmth against me sat heavy in my chest. At the hospital, an hour's drive from the trail, the ER buzzed with white coats and beeping monitors. Nora was stable antivenom in, vitals steady. The doc said the venom hadn't hit her bloodstream, thanks to the quick action. She'd need a few days rest, but she'd pull through. Reed and the others crowded the waiting room, relieved, swapping storm stories. I stayed quiet, back to the wall, replaying the night in my head. The way she'd looked at me under that rock, her hand in mine. It wasn't just survival anymore. Something had changed, and I didn't know what to do with it. Later, when visits opened, I slipped into her room. She was propped in bed, IV in her arm, hair loose, face still pale but brighter. Reed had stepped out for coffee, leaving us alone. "You didn't have to stick around," she said, voice stronger, a quick smile flashing. I shrugged, sinking into the chair beside her. "Wanted to make sure you were okay." She studied me, eyes like she was seeing me fresh. "You did more than that, Jasper. You stayed when most would have run." I looked down, hands still flecked with trail dirt. "Couldn't leave you out there." My voice dropped lower than planned. She reached out, fingers brushing mine light, but deliberate. "I know. And that means more than you think." Her touch lingered, warm and sure, sparking through me. I didn't pull away, but Reed's shadow hung in my mind. She was his mom. I couldn't cross that line, could I? She withdrew her hand, breaking the moment. Get some rest, she said. Tone, gentler, cautious. You earned it. I nodded, standing, but her words stuck, heavy and unanswered. As I left the room, I glanced back. She watched me, expression unreadable. The hospital fluorescents hummed overhead, but all I heard was her voice from that night, saying she wasn't scared because I was there. 2 weeks slipped by since the hospital, and life tried to snap back to normal, or close enough. I was back in my apartment, hunched over my laptop, debugging code for a picky client. Denver's streets hummed outside my window. The city rolled on like nothing happened, but I couldn't shake it. That night's wait in the woods, Nora's hand in mine, her voice steady as she fought to stay awake. It wasn't just the bite or the rain, it was her. The way she'd looked at me like I was more than Reed's friend. Reed hadn't dwelled on it much. He'd thanked me a dozen times, slapped my back, even bought me a beer calling me a hero. I brushed it off, said it was nothing, but I hadn't told him everything. Not how I'd held his mom under that rock, not how her words had burrowed in. I couldn't. It felt like betrayal to him, or maybe to myself. So I kept quiet, fell back into routine, pretending it was just some ordinary weekend. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. I opened it, and my breath caught. Buddy misses you. He's moping in the yard. If you're free, you know where to find us. Nora. Buddy was her dog, a shaggy golden retriever I'd met a few times at Reed's. I stared at the message, rereading. Simple words, but loaded. She didn't spell it out, but I got it. An invite not just for the dog. I sat there, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Sunlight poured in, warm through my window, nothing like the storm that trapped us. I thought of her in that hospital bed, fingers grazing mine, voice saying she wasn't scared because I was there. I typed, Buddy's got good taste. Be there around 5. I hit send before overthinking, heart kicking up. When I pulled up to her house, a charming 2-story in a quiet Denver neighborhood, the air smelled of fresh-cut grass and fading summer. Nora was on the porch, tossing a tennis ball to Buddy, who bounded across the lawn. She wore jeans and a loose sweater, hair down softer than I'd ever seen. Hey, she called, smiling as I stepped from the car. Not the sharp trailhead grin, but warmer, unguarded. Didn't think you'd actually come. Couldn't let Buddy down, I said, grinning as the dog barreled over, tail wagging wild. I scratched his ears, glancing her way. You look good. She laughed, a low, easy sound. Thanks to you. We walked to the nearby park, Buddy trotting ahead, the silence between us comfy, but charged. Sky clear, golden light slanting through the trees. I wanted to ask about the text, what it meant, but the words stuck. She broke it first, throwing the ball. You know, you didn't have to stay out there, she said quietly. Most would have gone for help. Left me with that clown Toby. I shrugged, kicking a pebble. Didn't feel right leaving you. She stopped, turning to me. Her eyes steady, searching. That's what I keep thinking about. You stayed even when running was easier. My throat tightened. I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it new. Not just Reed's mom, not just the woman I'd saved, but someone who'd trusted me when it mattered most. Some things are worth sticking for, I said, words slipping out before I could stop them. Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. Some things, yeah, we didn't say more. No need. We headed back to her place, Buddy panting happily between us. At the door, she touched my arm light, but on purpose. Come back anytime, Jasper. Buddy's not the only one who likes it. I nodded, chest warm, and drove home under a sky too bright to feel real. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Not yet. In the twists of life, where familiar paths suddenly turn into ruthless storms, an unexpected bite can uncover the deepest truths of our humanity. Picture it, an everyday guy like Jasper, trapped in a deluge of rain and raw fear in the Rockies, facing Nora, the mother of his best friend, brought down by a snake's venom. It's not just a physical crisis that binds them, but a gut-deep call to act, to trust the other completely. Jasper, hands shaking, draws the poison from her flesh, not from know-how, but pure instinct to protect. And in that act, a timeless lesson rises. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the bridge to real connection. How often do we hide behind walls of manners, social fears, those lines we don't cross to dodge the chaos? Yet it's in the chaos that true strength is born. Nora, the ex-army nurse with steel in her gaze, opens to Jasper not as some untouchable icon, but as a woman broken and whole, whispering, "I'm not scared, because you're here." Those words, breathed under a makeshift shelter, echo in our hearts. Life teaches us that the richest bonds aren't forged in routine's comfort, but in trials shared. They remind us that behind every family friend lurks a potential savior, and behind every savior, a soul craving trust. Isn't that the heart of it all? Daring to suck the venom from another's wounds, metaphorically, our doubts, our silences, so life flows again, clean and alive. This isn't just an adventure tale. It's a mirror held to our souls, urging us to embrace the unforeseen, to turn fear into unbreakable loyalty. And you, friends, what life's bite taught you to trust? Share in the comments your turning points. Those moments a simple act changed everything. Subscribe for more stories that stir the soul, awaken the heart together. Let's explore the hidden trails of what makes us human. Your voice matters. Your sub lights the way. See you soon for more lessons carved in the Rockies' wind.